Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yesterday we were discussing to create folder structure and inside the subfolders how we're going to create the data extension. And somebody asked me a question like in SSJS, what are the use cases that we will be using to create folders, subfolders and creating data extension. So today we'll be discussing one of the commonly used use case that is data view and we'll show you how we can create folders, how we can create query activity, okay, and then how we can perform those activity by SSJS. So today what we are going to do is we are going to create a data extension called data views under the root folder data extension, similar to what we did yesterday, and then we will create uh, different data extensions for the views like send, open, click, and bounce. We could have other data views as well. And then what we are going to do is under SQL query, we are going to create a subfolder called data view query. And then we'll create a query for send, open, click, and bounce. And all this would be based on the data views. Okay. So if you haven't watched my previous video, I would request you to go and watch the previous video and then come here for your clear understanding of what we are doing here. Okay. So we would go to the code resource, and this is my basic structure of writing in SSJS. We have the starting and the closing tag and the try catch block with the platform.load code library function, right? Here, as we discussed yesterday, okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to first create a data view, and for creating a data view, we need the parent folder category ID, right? So we need to write a function that will retrieve us the category ID. So let's go to the top one, and this is a function which I'm not going to explain again. You can go back to my previous video and then you can see what I've explained for this function to retrieve the category ID. Okay. The second function again is similar to the yesterday's function to create a folder. Okay. So I'm not spending time explaining again this function. If you want to see the explanation, you can watch my previous video. Then with these two functions, I can get the category ID and I can create a folder. So what is my next functions that I require? I need to create data extension for send data view, open data view, click data view, and bounce data view, right? So I have created those functions to create the data views. So this is my function that would create send data view. Let me copy all the 4 functions for the data views, and I'm going to explain this. Okay. So this is the open data view. Okay. And then I have the click data view. Okay. And the last one that I've created for demo is the bounce data view. Okay. So we can spend some time here explaining a very quick one, how we create a data view. So it's a data extension. Basically, we are creating a data extension. And in the previous video, you know how we are creating the data extension, right? So we need to define the configuration with all the properties of the data extension like customer key, which has to be unique. And I have hard coded here because this data view send. Okay, you can definitely pass through a query parameter and then define this name. And the category ID, we are supplying the category ID. So as you see here, it should reside under the data views folder. So we need to get the category ID of this folder name data views. Okay. And based on the field properties that you can see in data views Salesforce, right? You can go to this official website and then you go to like send and get all these column names as your attributes. Okay. Account, OYB, account ID, job ID, list ID, batch ID, and the data extension data types are also mentioned here: number, text, and this text is basically 254 text. This date time, this text is 128. So similarly, I have created these fields for that particular data view, which is send. Those in the same way, I have created data view for open. Okay, and similarly for click, few fields, extra fields will be there definitely. Like you have the URL, link, name, content, right? Link, content, and all those attributes you need to populate. And obviously for bounds, you have more fields like bounds category ID, bounds category, bounds subcategory ID, and all. Okay, you define all this, and you're creating a function to create a bounds data view. Well and good. And I have also, so the next one, before jumping, so here, as we said, like we will create a data extension called data views under the data extension folder, root folder. Similarly, inside automation activity, okay, inside SQL, like if you go here, okay, here you have the query main root folder is a query, and below this we'll create a folder called data view queries. Okay, and inside there we'll create, so since this is a folder, the first two function will suffice to create a folder. Okay, now we are going to create the query definition for send, open, click, and bounce. Okay, so similarly, I have created another four functions to create the query definition. So this one is the first function. Let me copy and paste it here. Okay, so here, similar to how we create a data extension, we create a query definition. We need to pass the name, customer key, category ID, the folder uh, where you need to, if you want to mention the folder ID, the category ID, then it will reset under that particular folder. If you do not mention, then it will be stored in the all queries here, in all SQL query. Okay, and what is the query type? So I have used override. Okay, what is the target type? So the target type is we are going to store into a data extension. So we have to pass D. Okay, and since we said this is a, we need to pass it to a data extension. We need to mention the name of the data extension, that is the data view send, which we will create here. If you see here, right? So the customer key is data view send, and the name is data view send. I've kept the same, both the same, so make functionality look easier. Okay, so here I've sent the target is the data extension, and the name is data view send, and the customer key is also data view send. And what is the query text? So you can write a query. I have written a very simple query. Select all from underscore send. You can give a few attribute as well, like say subscriber key, email address, comma, right? And then you can store it that way also. And then you do a query definition that add. And if you run this function, it is going to create a query definition for you. Fine. So similarly, I have created similar query activities, okay, for open, click, and bounce. So you have this for open, okay. Then you have, oh, sorry, I have to copy the full code. Otherwise, for me, if something goes wrong, troubleshooting at this moment might be difficult. Okay, so always remember whenever you have to have a definition, the function that creates the definition is add. So we are basically creating a query definition. So it has to be add. If you're doing an update, it should be update. Okay. And these are the properties based on which we are doing the add. So keep in mind that this particular line is very important. Perform this activity. Okay. Sometimes in copy paste, we miss certain lines and then we burn a lot of ourselves trying to troubleshoot. If we do not have proper try and catch and we are not catching the exception. So this is for click data view, similar function. We have the query definition called click data view query definition. The customer key is click data view query definition. Okay. The category ID is basically this data view underscore query holders category ID. Okay. And the target data extension is obviously the data view click. And the query text is select all from underscore click, right? And the last one is the bounce. So I copy this function. Okay. So now our main function starts with inside the try catch block. So the first thing is we need to basically retrieve the parent folder category ID, that is the data extension category ID, create the data views folder, right? So as I explained yesterday, what I'm going to do is copy this line of code, paste it here. Here, what I'm doing is ignore this is just for a demonstration. I can write more even explicit comments and description what I'm doing inside this particular area, right? So here I said this data extension for data views start here. So what I'm doing is inside this particular block, I'm performing all those activities related to the data extension. That is basically creating these data views, okay, and then creating the data extensions. So let's see what I've written here. So first is the getting the parent folder category ID based on the first function that we had written, okay, and then we'll create the folder called data views, okay, giving the customer case data views. This is the description for the data view, and the content type is data extension. This allow children, okay, and this is the parent category ID, that is the root folder ID. And this I have explained much better yesterday. And then what we do, so here inside this data extension, that is data views, we need to create four data extensions, right? So I got the category ID of the data view, okay, and then I'm creating the data extension. Send data view, create send data view function, giving the category ID. If let's go back to this particular function, this is our create send data view function, and I'm passing the category ID, basically the data view ID category ID, right? Doing the retrieve function for the folder, fetching the category ID, and I'm passing this category ID here, okay, so that whenever this data extension is created, it gets created under this folder, okay, and I've defined all the fields that has to be created. So if you see here 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, so there are almost 11 fields 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So 11 fields for send data view. Okay, maybe we have one more is unique here, maybe, okay. So I don't know if it's 11 or 12 here. I don't want to go keep on counting how many fields. And then we are going to create the open data view similar to send data view, and then click and bounce, right? So if I execute this much of a block, okay, it is going to create data views, data folder inside data extension folder, okay, and it's going to create the data extension. And normally these are normal data extensions. We haven't used any retention policy or sendable or testable. Okay. Now what is the next? The next one is to create a folder on inside automation activity. Yeah, activities, right? So below this, I'll have another block. So this block would create a folder, and the like in the first block, we created a folder that is called the data views. Okay, and then we created the data extensions, data view data extensions. Now we will create a folder. So this is the parent folder. Okay, with here what I'm doing. Okay, let me go slow. So when I'm creating the data extension folders and creating the data extension, I'm retrieving the folder category ID. Okay, with the name data extension. That's the root folder, and category and the content type is data extension, right? So here I also need to get the parent folder, okay, which is called query here. Okay, this is the query, this one. Okay, and then this is the content type as query activity. So I'll get this particular query activity category ID for this particular folder name query. Okay, and then we are going to create a folder called data views underscore query. Okay, so I'm keeping the name and the custom key the same. I always use the same mechanism because it helps in a lot of SSJS activities that I perform. And once I create this particular folder, I need to retrieve the category ID so that under that particular folder, I can create the query definition. So create send data view query, this one, create send data view query. Okay. And here I'm directly using the I could have similarly like I'm basically here I'm passing the category ID here. Okay, when I'm calling the function, what I did here was I'm directly calling this function because these parameters are hard coded. So better to make it little simple, I hard code this parameters data views underscore query and the content type as query activity. Okay, so this is create send data view query. So similarly, create send data view query, create open data view query, click data view query, and bounce data view query. Together, if I perform this block and this block, okay, then it's going to create the data extensions inside a data view folder, and this is going to create you query views underscore data views underscore query folder and the query definitions, right? Uh, Here, I could have stopped and showed you, okay, how it is, whether it is getting created or not. I still wanted to do, though you can do it to test if you're learning, right? But in real time scenario, whenever you create, it's not the right time that you perform on the query definition as well. Okay, but just for the demo purpose, what I'm doing is I'm basically running the query activities that I created. Okay, so inside this block, what I've written is uh, this is a variable called query send data view. Okay, like how we initialize the data extension dot int. So similarly, query definition dot int. Okay, init function and pass the customer key. Okay, so we are initializing a variable with the query definition, and then we do that particular object dot perform, which is data query send data view dot perform. So once this particular line get executes, it will run the script. Okay, and once it runs the script, the data extension that we created, which is basically the data extension that would be this one, which is send data view. Okay, that will be populated with data. So similarly, what we did for open, okay, we initialize the open query definition as query definition dot init function open data view query definition. If you want to see the customer key, so let's go to the query definition. So this is my create send data view query, okay, and the customer key is send data view query definition, right? So with the customer key, I'm basically initializing that query definition, and with this dot perform function, I'm running that particular query activity. Okay, so similarly, I'm doing it for open, click, and bounce. So let's revise from first before running this query. So here we have a root folder called data extension. Inside that, we need to have a data views folder, and inside the data views folder, we need to have 4 data extension: send, open, click, and bounce. And similarly, inside the query activity, under the query is not SQL, so this is the query folder. Okay, inside the query folder, we need to create another folder called data views underscore query, and then we create query definition, send query definition, open query definition, click, and bounce. Okay, so before, okay, let me save. Okay, let me publish this, and let's before running this page, okay, before clicking on the URL, let's validate we do not have all these things in place in Marketing Cloud. Okay, so this is my data extension. Let's refresh this. Because if we have the same name or the same folders and the same data extension, it is going to give you an exception saying that error occurred while creating the folder or something. Okay, so let's do this. First, confirm whether we have these folders and data extension or not. If you do not have it, then it's better, right? Okay, let me again refresh this. Go to data extensions. Go to data extension, right? So we don't have the data views folder here. Okay, so similar to automation, let's refresh this. And inside the SQL query, all these queries, we don't have, we have measures, SQL basics and all, but we don't have data views query, right? So with the name as data views query, we don't have that particular folder as well. So everything is good. Okay, so let's click on the URL and run this code resource. So here you can see query definition successful. So I've written it I think four right statement I've given. Normally I do not even give the right statement. Okay, what I do is in the catch, I basically perform a operation where I'll catch the exception and add it to the exception logging table. Okay, so this print statement is coming from which function? Let's say inside the, let's go to the try catch. Okay, I'm at the right place. So whenever I'm performing the query activity, okay, I'm performing the status and writing the status. Again, performing this particular operation and writing the status. Basically, we should have, for safety purpose, we should have given a unique variable name even for the statuses. Okay, but yeah, in SSJS, every time it runs one by one as an interpreter. Okay, sorry, as a translator, not as an interpreter. So let's validate whether those data extensions were created or not. Okay, let's refresh our page and see if that particular folders and data extensions were created. And here it will not only create, it will basically populate the data because we have performed the query activity. So we have data views. Okay, so data view underscore bounds. Okay, the external key is also data view underscore bounds, and we have 179 records, right? And we have data view sent 251. Okay, and if I just open any one just to show it is just created just now, so you can see the date and time. Okay, so this is CST time, so you can just calculate the time that is here. Yeah. Okay, and let's go to the automation and see if that particular. Okay, so we have data views query underscore query, and here we have 4 different query definition that has been created. You can see the time as well. So, and yeah, and you can see the external keys, right? Whatever I've mentioned in the function, it is the same here. So thank you all for watching this session. Again, we'll come up with new use case, how to use SSJS, and we'll record it and upload to my YouTube channel. Please come to my YouTube channel and then post as much as questions, as much of any clarification that you need. I will try to respond to those questions. And you can come to my LinkedIn, or you can post in the LinkedIn also. I'm okay to receive as much as questions that you have. Thank you all. Bye.